First of all, we have James Cervantes. He is the product manager for controls and lighting for FX Luminaire here at Hunter Industries. James, give him a wave.
I think you can see me.
Yep. And then we have David Wellborn. David Wellborn is a sales manager in the California area. Wealth of knowledge. David works in the field with contractors all the time on solving these issues, and he's got a few commonly answered or commonly asked question answers for you that you want to stay tuned for at the end of the presentation. Now, Ken Simons is a sales manager over in Nebraska for FX Luminaire as well. Again, this guy was a contractor. He was out in the field installing these systems, maintaining these systems, and working with the troubles that you find every day. So if you have any good questions that come in about that kind of stuff, management of the system, installing the system, troubleshooting the system, he's a great guy, and his contact information is up there too. So if you're in the Nebraska area, he's a great contact, even the Midwest area. And if you're in California, David's a good guy to reach out to. We have sales teams all over the country. So if they can't answer your question or they can't visit you to help you out, there's going to be a sales manager in your area that probably can. So with that being said, we want to jump right into the presentation and get to learning how the Luxor cloud works. So James, take it away, please.
Sounds good. Thanks, Greg. Like Greg mentioned, my name is James, and I'm the product manager for controls here at FX. So that would include your standard transformers as well as your Luxor system here. So obviously, we're going to be talking about Luxor Cloud today. One thing I guess kind of my goal here is if you could take away one thing from kind of a high level, would be that Luxor Cloud is not a feature. Luxor Cloud is more of a capability, or it's more of a platform that we have developed. Obviously, it has features, but the real power here is that that platform, that capability is going to allow us to expand upon those features and then come out with some really cool features that you would kind of expect from a system like Luxor. So with that being said, a few items that we're going to go over today. First, I want to touch on what exactly is cloud or the cloud and how it relates to Luxor Cloud. Then we'll move into some key points or some requirements that are required in order for a Luxor controller to be hooked up to the Luxor Cloud. Go into feature and benefits, and then after that, kind of just go through a step-by-step process of hooking up your Luxor controller from beginning all the way to the end. And then kind of like Greg was just talking about, I think probably one of the more beneficial parts of this webinar is going to be able to hear from David and Ken. They're very experienced with Luxor. They're out there every single day. So to be able to get that real life field experience point of view is going to be good for all of us. So what is cloud or the cloud? I'm sure many of you have heard it. Many of you probably know what it is, and many of you may not know what it is. But what the cloud is basically it's a virtual place where these network of servers or databases are stored. You can store data, you can manage data, and you can distribute data from there. So if you put it into the context of a Luxor system, say you have your Luxor app, you tell a specific group to turn on at a specific intensity and turn on to a specific color. That information goes from your phone up to the cloud database, the Luxor cloud database. In that database, that particular controller is also looking into the cloud at that database. It'll pull that information, send it to the controller, and then the controller sends it to the fixtures. Some of the big companies that develop these cloud platforms would be Amazon, Microsoft, Google. There's some other large companies as well. And there are companies that develop their own cloud platform. Probably the most relatable for a lot of us here would be HydroWise. So HydroWise is a cloud platform that the HydroWise controllers are controlled off of. And how this all relates to Luxor Cloud is that we developed our Luxor Cloud system using the Amazon Web Services. So if you ever hear AWS or Amazon Web Services in combination with Luxor Cloud, that's kind of how those two come together. So now moving into more details here. So some key points, some key requirements in order to set up a Luxor Cloud system. From the very beginning, you need to make sure that you have Luxor 2.0 controllers. Old Luxor ZD and ZDC controllers will not be able to be connected to the cloud, but they can be upgraded. And I think Ken and David will touch on that a little bit more later on. Really, the way to know if you have a Luxor 2.0 controller is anything, if you see anything on the facepack that's blue, then it is a Luxor 2.0 controller. So blue, you get cloud, no blue, no cloud. The other thing with each of these controllers is each one has a unique serial number that can be found on the Wi-Fi or the LAN setup screen, depending on how you're wirelessly controlling your controller. This is going to be very important because this serial number is going to be needed in order to set up each individual controller. So I just wanted to point that out here because I'm going to mention it a couple times because it's really a key point throughout the process. And then lastly, which is something that is also brought up many times in this presentation because it is very important and somewhat confusing out in the field, is that in order to access a Luxor cloud system, you need to log into the system. And the way that we create a username and password is that we associate users with Hunter account, or sometimes referred to as SSO. All customers, contractors, homeowners, sales rep, myself, we all need to have a valid Hunter account in order to access your Luxor cloud system. You can access that on fxl.com or the Hunter website. And lastly, the Hunter account is not the same as a HydroWise account. So if you are controlling HydroWise or you're managing HydroWise controllers, you need to make sure that you have a Hunter account as well. So some of the features and benefits, like I talked about before, cloud is a platform. Cloud is not a specific feature, but the features that we have right now on the cloud platform would be ones that we've been waiting for a very long time. So most important, remote access to your Luxor system. After that, I know that a lot of contractors and installers and designers have more than one Luxor system. So there is site management. So each controller needs to go into a site. That way, a homeowner with multiple sites or contractors that are managing multiple sites, they can toggle back and forth easily using the site management tool. It's also more of a reliable connection method, and I'll talk about the different connection methods that we now have once we've introduced cloud, and you'll be able to see kind of the way that we connect to the cloud versus the way that we connect using Direct Connect, as well as the old method of the network connection. So, and the benefits from this, you know, remote access, you're going to be able to get it from anywhere. As long as you have an internet connection, you'll be able to get into your Luxor system. I talked about this a few seconds ago. If you have multiple sites, then you're going to be able to manage multiple Luxor sites easily by using the site management feature. And for most of us, or not myself, but the most contractors and installers that are maintaining these systems, you will no longer have to go onto site in order to do design, in order to check see if their lights are on. For them to come in and, hey, I need a specific scene setup or a theme setup for a party that I have coming. You can all do that remotely, so you no longer have to drive over to the customer site. Now the process to convert from a network controller to a cloud controller. Really three different steps here, and this is regardless if it's a new install or an existing install. So first thing you want to do is you want to be able to upgrade that facepack firmware that's in your Luxor 2.0 controller. You want to make sure that you have the latest app from the App Store, and then after that you're going to go into the process of connecting your Luxor to the Luxor cloud. Most people probably have already updated if you have a system installed right now, but the old firmware that does not have cloud functionality would be revision 28. As long as you have revision 33 or higher, then you'll be able to connect to the cloud. We released this version probably 2 months ago. So many of you that have Luxor systems in the field probably have already received that notification to update the facepack. But some units that are currently at distribution or in the warehouse probably still have the old firmware, so it will need to be updated. Two different methods that have been around for a while. You will either be prompted if you are in network mode when you first set up your Luxor controller. It'll prompt you, let you know that you have a new version of firmware. You press yes, and it will automatically update the face pack. Or you can use an SD card and place all of the files that are required on that SD card and then take it to the controller face pack and update it that way. The Luxor Cloud app update. Many of you probably have the latest update update that includes cloud. We actually released a version of the Luxor Cloud in beta testing or beta mode back in March. So if you've had a Luxor since March, then more than likely you have the app that is available in order for you to run the cloud function. So that version would be 4.0 or higher. One last thing I want to talk about on the app. I'm sure many of you have been receiving updates to the app quite often, and the reason for that is that we do continuous releases, and this is really a software development best practice. After we release a new feature, or we release a bug fix, or we release anything that's related to the code, we push it out to the store. So that code is continuously being worked on day after day as we move to those new features. So we want to make sure that we get all of that updates, regardless if it's the actual feature or not. We want to make sure we get that out into the store to make sure nothing breaks. So you will continue to see releases very often, but that's really the background behind that process. So connecting to cloud. So here on the left-hand side, the app is currently in network mode. What you will need to do is you will be able to go into the settings icon in the top left-hand corner. There will be an option for Luxor Cloud. You will press that button and it'll toggle into Luxor Cloud mode. The first thing that you will do, you'll be prompted to sign in. And now this goes back to what I was talking about at the very beginning. I don't want to keep harping on it, but it is very, very important. Each person that wants to have access to that controller needs to have a Hunter SSO account. Typically, the person that is setting up the system is more than likely a contractor. So they will go in, they will enter their Hunter SSO account into the login screen, and then they will press login. Once they press login, they will be sent to the add controller to site. What they will do is they will press create site. It'll take you to the middle screen here. You'll type in the site name, and then you'll press continue. Once you press continue, that site goes into the site management screen or mode. So here you will be able to see all your available sites that you have associated with your Hunter account. In this particular situation, we only have one. Once you select the site that you want to add controllers to, you press continue, and you will be sent to the add controller screen. So this is very important, once again, which is why I pointed out the unique serial number being very important for this process. Once you get to the add controller screen, it is going to ask you for the controller serial number. On the Luxor controller, you will scroll to either the Wi-Fi or the LAN setup screen, depending on how you have the controller set up. You need to remain on this screen. Take the serial number, type it into the app. Once you have it in the app, you will press next. Staying on that screen, it will automatically pop up a 4-digit verification code. You take that 4-digit verification code and you put it into the app where it is asking you for that 4-digit verification code. If you do not enter the code within, I believe, 5 minutes, it will disappear. If you do not enter the correct code, it will let you know, and then you can go back and re-enter it. Once you have the controller connected, it will send you directly to the controller page in the app. 2 ways to know that you are connected to cloud is the controller number will say LX2-AWS, which we know stands for Amazon Web Services, and then it will have the 4-digit, or it'll have the 10-digit serial number associated with that controller. So if you have multiple controllers throughout a property, if you want to know which one is actually connected to the cloud. Go to that Wi-Fi setup screen, check that serial number, and verify it to what's on the app. The other way to know that you're on cloud is if you press the back button in the controller screen, you'll be sent to the home screen, and that site that you currently or that you just created will be listed at the top of the screen below the Luxor icon. In order to get back to the site's page, you will click on that orange text and it'll take you back to that site's page where you have all of your different sites selected. If you want to add multiple controllers, you will go back to the controller screen, or you'll stay in that controller screen, press the plus button, and it'll take you back to the process of adding that controller to that particular site. So you'll go back, go to the Wi-Fi setup screen, type in that 10-digit serial number, get the verification code, press next, and then your new controller will pop up here on the controller screen as well. So you can have up to 10 controllers on a site, and there's no limit to the number of sites. To delete controllers, so this is a new feature that we came out with earlier in May. What you will do, it's very similar to the way that you delete a controller on the network mode. You'll go to the controller screen, select the controller that you want to delete. You'll press the arrow. It'll take you to the controller information. Scroll down to the bottom, press delete controller, and then you press delete again once you get the verification, are you sure you want to do this? This will not notify other people that have access to this controller. So if you have a customer that you set up the system for, they have access already, you go in and you press delete, that controller will no longer be there. If there is no, in this particular case, I have one controller set to this site. If I delete it, now I have no controller set to this site. So when I log on and I go to that site and I press continue, it will not take me to the home screen. It will take me back to the add controller screen, and you need to repeat that process again. Site sharing, like I said, you will be the one that sets it up, most likely a contractor. You're going to want to give your homeowner access to that particular site. So you will go to the site management page, select the site that you want to share, and then you will press the human icon that's located on the left-hand side. Once again, not to harp on it, but whoever you are sending the invite to must have a valid Hunter SSO account. And you need to make sure that the email that you press or that you place into the share field is the actual email address that they have associated with their Hunter account. One big note that I don't have on here is, even though we're sending it to an email account, we're actually sending it to an account. So Luxor does not send email notifications to a user to let them know that a site's been shared with them. I'll show you in the next screen. What happens is when they log in the first time using those credentials, a screen will pop up and say that this particular user has shared this site with you. Would you like access or not? There is no limit to the number of users per site, and at this point there are no permission levels. So whoever sets it up has the same ability to control the Luxor as the person that they're sharing it with. Once again, no email notifications are sent. The user will go back, they'll press login once they have their credentials in there. It'll let them know the email address that was sharing the site with them, and then you press yes, and it'll take them to their site's page, and it'll have everything listed for them. In most cases, it'll just be a homeowner or your customer with one Luxor site, so that'll be the only thing that they have listed inside of there. Right now, you are able to edit the site name. So if you go and create a site for a customer and they don't like the way that that name is written, or they would like to change it, they can go in, select the site that they want to rename, press the edit. It'll take them back to the field where they can update the text. Once they update the text, they press continue. It'll take them to the site's page, and now that new name is listed here. At this point, there's no capability to delete a site, only to delete a controller. So if you go in and create test sites, those test sites will continue to be there until we add the capability to delete a site. If you want to add multiple sites, like you saw in the screens prior to this, you go into the sites management page, similar to the way that you added an additional controller. You'll press the plus button, and it will take you to the add controller to sites page. You will press create site, and then it'll take you through that process of adding a controller to that particular site. No limit to the number of sites that can be created once again. So that's really the main process there. And I know that it's not very many steps, but it can be somewhat confusing. So we wanted to make sure when we release this feature that we provided as many resources as possible. So probably the most powerful resource is the quick start guide. It will go through the exact screens that I just went through on the PowerPoint, and it'll make it step-by-step process, giving you the details, showing you where to find the serial number, where to place it in the app. So a couple ways that we made this quick start guide available in the app. If you go to the gearbox, there will be a selection down there for Luxor quick start guide. It'll automatically take you to the PDF version that's located on fxl.com. We've also added quick start links throughout the process in case you get confused on, well, what is a controller serial number? What is a verification code? That's a quick link to the quick start guide as well, so you can go to that exact spot that you want to look into. Lastly, the other resource that we have is the tech support. This is pretty detailed on the tech support side. It really went based off of that quick start guide. Everything was created, the different sections based off of the different process. So once again, if you have any questions on how to select that, there'll be an option on the left-hand side. One of the more powerful tools that you will find in the support section is the FAQ, or the troubleshooting. So there are a lot of common mistakes that happen as you're setting up a Luxor controller. So anytime one of those questions comes in and we have the exact answer or the reason why it's doing that, we will put it into this FAQ, or troubleshooting. That way it'll walk you through that, or let you know why that particular option or why that particular thing is happening on the app or on the controller. So now that we have cloud, we really have 3 different methods that you can wirelessly interact with the Luxor controller. So the first 2 here, the first one is Direct Connect. So Direct Connect was something that was available in a 1.0 controller as well as a 2.0 controller. Direct Connect works when you have a Wi-Fi module connected to the controller. What this is basically that Wi-Fi module becomes a hotspot. So now I can use that Wi-Fi module as my Wi-Fi network, connect my Luxor app to that particular method or to that particular network, which is the controller, and I can interact with the controller that way. Obviously, there's limitations to the distance that I can use my app with the controller, but it's a real easy way in case you, as a contractor installer, don't have the credentials or access to the Wi-Fi system at the customer's site. The old method, or the method that's not cloud, is what we call the network mode. So you have your app, it is connected to the router using Wi-Fi. You have your controller that is connected to the router using either a LAN connection or Wi-Fi. So in this method, you will go, app will tell the router what you want the controller to do, and then from the router, you'll be able to communicate with the controller. Depending on the system or the network, some of them have been very complex because a lot of these Luxor sites are very large with multiple controllers. This one can be sometimes a hassle, and sometimes you need to get the network person that set up the customer's house involved into this. So the way that this is different on the cloud side, like I mentioned in the beginning, you have the app, The app is either cellular or running on wireless into the internet that talks to AWS that is associated with the Luxor cloud platform. The cloud goes to the router, and now the controller only needs to go to the router. And so within this process here, that controller is still associated with the same database that that app is communicating with. So just because, I guess the point of these last few slides is that not everything needs to be cloud. You have 3 different options, and the different options are really based off of what you or your customers want to control. So now I'm going to send it off to David, and he's really going to talk about those 3 different methods and how you can talk to your customer and determine which way or which method is the best for them.
All right, awesome. A great job. Thank you, James. So what James has done is he's kind of gone through fairly quickly on the different ways of actually physically setting up your system. That whole time, the first time you do it, will probably take you anywhere from like 15 to 20 minutes, as long as you've got a couple of things set up, and Ken's going to go over that shortly. But once you've done it a couple of times, you're like, oh, I've got this, and it's a less than a 10-minute from start to finish, as long as you've got your ducks in a row and as long as you've got the setup ready to go. So the questions that we get, that Ken, myself, and James get are, well, which one do I use? Do I really need it? Do I really want it? So I'm going to kind of go through the 3, and the first one I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the direct connect mode. So if you have a Luxor controller and you have a backyard, and say you are within 30 feet of your jacuzzi, and that's what you'd like to do, and your Luxor comes on every evening at sunset and turns on your normal evening theme, and you simply just want to be able to change it to a romantic evening or an entertainment, you possibly don't even need a network or a cloud-based. So you're in a close proximity, or you don't have very good Wi-Fi, or you're just kind of one of those people that just doesn't like gadgets and doesn't like to get too technical with stuff. So there's nothing wrong with going with a direct connect. It's a little bit like a Bluetooth or a garage door remote in that kind of distance. But if you're hanging out there and you've got your Luxor that's close, that's perfectly fine. And you just use the hotspot on your phone to actually just turn the thing on and off, and you might only use it like once a week or once a month, depending on the season. Your Luxor will still come on every evening through its program, but direct connect mode can work perfectly fine. If you're also a designer or an installer and it likes to go out into the field and actually go and demo Luxors to clients, I tend to do that in direct connect mode also. That way you do not have to go and ask your clients for their Wi-Fi and password and go through all of that. It becomes a lot easier and a lot more simple way of just connecting your phone, your remote control, to the device itself. All right, so that's kind of direct connect mode. Then we go to network. So network, obviously being a little bit more advanced. Network we've actually had for about the last 10 years, works very, very well. The only real limitation with network is you need to be within your house Wi-Fi proximity. So you just think you've got that bubble of Wi-Fi that's emanating from your router, and it can be, if you've got extenders, it's whatever is on the size of the property, and that might be just perfect. I was on a job site last week. Customer says, hey, I only ever use my Luxor and my app when I'm here. Do I need to go to cloud? And my answer was no. And so he goes, okay, so he understood what direct connect was. So he understood what network was, and then he says, okay, please explain why I would use the cloud-based part of it. So I gave him a couple of examples. One is if your homeowner has got a guest house at the river, at the beach, or at the island, wherever that place is, and the family is going out to stay there, he, her, you, anybody has got the ability to turn those lights on before they arrive. Okay, another cute one that came up was over Valentine's Day. So Valentine's Day, you forgot to get flowers, you forgot to wish your wife a happy Valentine's Day. You can actually just go into the cloud. You can turn on your Valentine's scene if you've got color in there. And now I've got purple or pink, and you've been that good spouse, and you've now got lighting for them. So just think about if you're a contractor and you are now wanting to manage your lighting controls, either for some seasonal stuff or some site management. It might be in the fall, you've got the ability to change the lighting to cloud colors. You do not need to be on the site. You can simply go through, you can update their settings, you can update their colors, you can update their scenes. You can just push that through, and you can do that without being on the property. And that can be a revenue generator for the contractors out there in the world, very much the same as my guys do with the HydroWise systems. Okay, so those are the three. So direct connect, if someone's not tech savvy at all, if they've got bad Wi-Fi, if they just want to go and turn it on occasionally. Network, it's kind of that every evening, but they want to have the remote for their home, but they don't have that second property. They don't travel very much. They only intend just changing their scenes and themes when they're on the property. And the third one is if you're doing some off-site management, and or you wish to go and control another property of yours or somebody else's from somewhere else. Okay, so that's kind of how the three methods, and those are the questions that do come up as far as cloud, network, or direct connect. Now, what Ken is going to do, he's going to kind of go through some of the common pre-meeting checklists that you want to go and have to make that meeting not take an hour while your customers are looking for their FacePack version, or do they have an account, or all of those things that become clunky. So Ken's going to go through that and help you out with that. All right, Ken?
Yeah, great information, David. Great information. One other thing that I get questioned a lot on, another benefit to the Direct Connect is a lot of people will ask, can I run this system without zero Wi-Fi? So if the controller's at a gate, or if it's a new home and there's no Wi-Fi yet, then that's another great benefit to the Direct Connect, is that you can run the system with no Wi-Fi. So another benefit, the Direct Connect for that. So pre-meeting checklist, David and I kind of spoke on this. What do we like to see before we go to actually set up the cloud, like James was talking about? So there's a few things here. Is the Luxor connected to the Wi-Fi network? And if so, what is the RSSI? That's the relative signal strength indicator. That's what we need to know how strong that signal is at that location. And so the controller will give you a number over on the right-hand side. So a lot of times guys will call me and say, hey, I'm sending the commands and it's not responding, or the app's not responding. And the first question I'll ask is it connected, and what's your signal strength? And so we want that signal strength, the magic number 70 or higher, 70 or higher, for that controller to operate properly. I've seen it connect in the 50s and 60s, but it's not going to receive the commands like it should, being 70 or higher. So if not, make sure you're either moving that controller or getting an extender or booster or something to that location so you have the proper signal. And so all the Luxors that are on site 2.0 units. So James mentioned anything that's got the blue stripes on it, that's the 2.0s. We need to make sure that if there's multiple Luxors on the site, that all of them are 2.0 units in order to upgrade to or allow cloud access to those controllers. I'm always going to ask, is that FacePack version 3.33 or higher? That's very important. Is the app 4.0 and higher? So these are kind of checklists that you want to establish before actually trying to attempt to connect this controller to the cloud, excuse me. And then who's going to be using the app? Most of the time, like James said, it's the designer, it's the contractor, it's the installer, but they're the ones that are going to get it set up for the homeowner. Are they going to continue to manage it? Is the homeowner want any part to it? Do they want to run it? That sort of thing. So if the homeowner is going to be the end user, which usually they are, you want to make sure that they've set up their account and that you have an email to provide access to that clock or to that controller once it's been set up. And so has that SSO been created for both the designer, installer, contractor, and the homeowner as well? So those are kind of your pre-meeting checklists that you want to make sure that those are all checked before you go to connect your controller or the homeowner's controller to the cloud. So next we're going to talk about some frequently asked questions. These are questions that I get a lot, David gets a lot, the other sales guys get a lot, and I'm sure James gets them too. And so we wanted to kind of get those out in the open. And if you guys have any more questions, please type them in the chat box over there. Greg's kind of watching those, and he'll throw those out at us and afterwards, and we'll run through that. So first question I get is, what does it cost? Everybody wants to know what the cost of something is. Fortunately, there's no cost to this service. So once they purchase the controller and the way that controller is connected to the network via Wi-Fi module or LAN connected, with it being hardwired, there's no cost. But that does bring up a point. The controller still has to be connected to a network. So we're running through the cloud, but it still has to be connected to a network. So that's important. I get that question as well. So why would you want to upgrade to cloud? David hit on it. James hit on it. It really just gives you the ability to remotely manage your lighting system. If that's not a priority, then there's no need to upgrade to the cloud. Not really an upgrade, just allow that service to your system. So if you want to control it remotely, if mainly for that contractor, designer, installer, Mrs. Jones calls and says, hey, we're having a party on Friday. Can you make it red? It's the whatever. So that is a huge benefit for the contractor, designer, installer to be able to manage that system remotely. How long does the process take? Dave kind of hit on that. You're 15 to 20 minutes if you have to do the updates, if the updates are already installed, if your login's already created, it's obviously going to be faster than that. And that runs, it seems like a lot of steps, but once you walk through it, as long as you're walking through that setup, it's very user friendly and walks through very fast. If there's multiple controllers, do they all have to be 2.0? I kind of hit on that already. Yes, but all the prior units to 2.0s, all the 1.0s can be upgraded to 2.0 with a Luxor faceplate and a Wi-Fi mod 2. And so that Wi-Fi mod 2 is different than the original Wi-Fi mod. The Wi-Fi mod went with the Luxor 1.0. The Wi-Fi mod 2 goes with the 2.0, and those are not interchangeable. And so if you're going from a 1.0 to a 2.0, you need an LUX FP face pack and a Wi-Fi mod 2. So that's important as well. Who will have access to the controller with the cloud option? So that's the person that sets it up is the one that originally has control, but as James spoke, you just click on that site and click on the little person with the plus button, and then you could send access to somebody else, the homeowner, somebody else that would have access to that clock. So great option, great feature. And since we're talking on that last question, will the customer, when you type in that customer or whoever you're giving access to, will they receive an email? I get that question a lot. No, they're not going to get an email, but when they open their app and they sign in with that email and password that they created, then they're going to get prompted and says that ABC Landscape is giving you access to this clock. Do you accept? And they say yes, and now they can pull that clock in or that controller in and be able to remotely manage that as well. So it has to, why you need a single sign-on, James kind of talked about that. We've got to have an account to house these controllers, and so that's, you're just creating, just like your garage doors and your thermostats and all that, you have to create a little account so you can manage that and get to it, access it remotely. And so that's all that we're doing. Can the direct connect and the local area network connection still work if the cloud is set up? And the answer is yes. So David spoke on the different methods, and they can also still be used as a combination. And that being said, the contractor can set that clock or that controller up on the cloud, but it's still on the network. So if the homeowner has no reason to get on the cloud, the homeowner can still use the network and be able to control that system wherever their Wi-Fi at their home reaches. And so that's kind of, now we're using two different ways. And if you are the service technician and you want to show up to service that clock, you can put it in direct connect mode if you don't know the homeowner's password or network, and be able to remotely manage, or not remotely, but manage that controller within that 30 to 50 feet with direct connect, and then the service tech and put it back to on their network, and the password's saved in there with just little stars, and he hits OK and it connects back. So you can choose one of those three ways of connecting, like David said, but you can also use a combination depending on the user and what they're trying to do. The next question is one that is a great benefit with using the LAM, which is the light assignment module. Do you still need to be on the same network as the controller to assign the light? So before we had the cloud option, if you wanted to use the LAM, in order for the phone or the smart device and the controller to work together, they had to be on the same network. And so you had limitations on being able to reassign group numbers on your fixtures. The restriction was you had to be on that same network. But if you've got a fixture that's way down by the dock or out by the gate, you no longer have Mr. Jones' network. You had to take that fixture out of the ground back to the controller and reassign it. Now, with the cloud option, you can remotely manage that controller from anywhere that you have self-service. And so we can use that LAM, we take out that restriction of a local area network. So that's a huge benefit of the cloud as well for those installers that are assigning those lights. I still always recommend assigning the lights at the controller first. That way it's guaranteed it's going to work. And then, but if you have to adjust something down the road, then using that light assignment module remotely works really well. And so how do I update the controller? James spoke on that. Really, your app is going to prompt you and say your controller needs updated when you open it, once you connect to it. And we suggest hitting update now every time. So we're going to continue to come out with new features and benefits. And we always recommend updating that when prompted. And so that's a really good way of doing that. James mentioned earlier on if you use this SD card of getting those files, putting all three of those files on that SD card, to find those files, that's another question I get. Where do I find those files? If you go to fxl.com, click on Luxor, and then there's a firmware tab. And if you click on firmware, there's the most recent files right there that you can throw onto an SD card. Take that SD card to the controller and update it that way. So those are the top frequently asked questions that I see the most. We're going to open it up here. If anybody's got any questions, Greg, has anything come through on the chat box that anybody's got out there?
Yeah, we got a few things coming in. Some great questions. I'm going to start with this question. This is from Thomas, and he says, "Oh, yeah, sorry, thanks." Oh, sorry, Thomas. I already answered your question there. This one's from Corey. Is there a maximum number of sites you can manage?
No, right now there is no number of sites. There's no limitation to the number of sites that you can create, or it sounds like in your case, manage. So as many customers as you have that have Luxor systems, you can continue to add them to the cloud and continue to provide sites for them.
All right, and then after the site's already been created and the controller's been created, do I have, as a contractor, the opportunity to rename the controller? So if I want to rename it because I'm going to add another one, can I do that?
So right now we do not have the capability to name controllers. That is on the list for features that need to be added because I know a lot of these sites, it's not typically just one controller on there, and it is hard to go back and have to look at the serial number and correlate it to where it is on the property. So it is going to be worked on, but right now it is not an option.
Okay. And then is there any way to back up the controller using the cloud from offsite, or do you have to put in an SD card?
That is also something that has been requested quite a bit. At this time, we are not able to access the database using the cloud. So the only option is to still use the SD card to go to the controller and back up that database.
That is a really good point, though. There's a lot of people out there that I get that question. They're not unfamiliar on how that works. And so even using the SD card to update or back up the controller should be done after every install. So you could use the same SD card and take it from controller to controller, label it Mr. Jones, label it 4915, whatever the address is. And then I always recommend putting that on your computer. And once Mr. Jones is, sent in the final payment, then you email Mr. Jones a copy of that file. And that way it's, you've got it digitally, and should anything ever happen to that controller, it needs to be replaced, you can put the new one on and upload that file and restore it, and all the programming's back, because everybody's got little Susie's favorite purple on their controller, and you want to make sure that that same color gets put back on. So
perfect. Now, will cloud push automatic firmware updates? Question mark.
Yeah, so it works the same way that a network controller is. So anytime there's a firmware update, regardless if you're in network or cloud mode, then it'll prompt you, and it'll push it to, or it'll prompt you. But now that I think about it, I think the question is, will automatically push to the controllers. Right now, we are not using that capability to just automatically update everybody's face pack or chassis or whatever the new firmware revision is. We always want to make sure that we ask the user before we give them ability to update the firmware.
Okay. And then I guess this is kind of like Hydro-wise, many of these questions, but does the homeowner need to give permission for you to get into their system from offsite?
No. So like I said, right now, everybody has the same level of permissions, which is there are no permissions. So everybody can access that Luxor controller, everybody can create groups, everybody can create colors, and everybody could manipulate themes. So right now, no permissions.
Okay, and if there's multiple users that have logged into this Luxor controller from the cloud, will you be able to see who's using it?
From the front end, no. From our end, the back end, yes, we would be able to see that. So if we ever run into issues, and that's kind of one of the more powerful tools that we have with the cloud, is that since each controller has that unique serial number, we're always able to go back and look at it in the system if there are issues, or if there's some type of complication with, hey, this user has access and it's not working. We can always go back and check and see who's using that controller and what that controller is doing. But from the front end,
Okay.
the UI on the app, there's no way.
And this next question is a little bit, I don't know if they were specifically talking about multiple controllers on site or a controller with multiple satellites, but the question is, a site with multiple controllers, does the app show one program or one controller?
So if there are multiple controllers, it will show every single controller that has been connected to the cloud. If it is a linking system and you have one master controller and then 4 satellites, it will only show the one master or primary controller, because that's really the only controller that has brains, has that serial number, has all the programs associated with it. One best practice is, if you have multiple controllers, you always want to make sure before you make changes in the app that both of those controllers are connected. That way you know you're communicating to all of the controllers on the site and not just the one that is connected, because they will become out of sync.
Okay. And then this question is directly related to subscriptions. I think maybe they also use Hydro-wise, but is there going to be a subscription plan in the future, and or will this be a free service to homeowners for life?
At this point and for the foreseeable future, this is not going to be a paid service. This is something that's going to be free to the homeowner, to the contractor. And for the reason, and I guess kind of the reason for that one point, is because the cloud and the Luxor itself is more of a smart home type of product as opposed to Hydro-wise. You get color changing, you get zoning, you get dimming, so it's something that people are used to when it comes to homeowners, and they're able to compare it to things that are inside of their house. And a lot of those products, Philips Hue, Nest, and some of those really, sometimes they're not paid subscription types of products. So.
Okay, and I think this question, I'm not exactly sure directly what they're saying, but when will you have to add the feature for lights to move from one color to another. Example, from red to white to blue in a loop. And I would say that we already have that.
So we do have the color wheel feature, which you select your starting color and it'll cycle through all of the different colors. I believe what they're asking is, wherein is the feature going to come where I can cycle between, just go from red to blue and then to white.
Okay.
Right now, that's not on the app side, that's more on the fixture side, and that's something that engineering is looking into in order to make that color wheel or that color changing feature a little bit more dynamic. So if anything that comes out first, it will be able to select my blue color, and then I can cycle through all of the different blues, but I won't be able to go from blue to red to green. So that's something that we've requested, and engineering's looking into it.
Okay. Can you shine light onto what platforms Luxor app is available for? This individual said that they bought a tablet, but Luxor does not work with that tablet. It might be an Amazon Kindle.
So Luxor is obviously iOS and Android. One thing that we've ran into recently with Android is if the product only has 32 gigabytes in the processor, then it is not compatible. We're trying to work with Android in order to make this available, but I know that a lot of apps that are going into Google Play right now, they're only supporting 64 gigabyte processor devices. So that is one limitation. And I believe on the Apple side, we don't support anything lower than an iPhone 6. So any iPhone 5 or lower, we don't support that. It's just the device itself doesn't have enough capability to run the application.
Okay. And does anything special need to be done for LSATs to communicate with the cloud?
No. So LSATs, the way I like to explain it is really just dummy wattage. So you're just taking a 300 watt system and adding a satellite will give you a 600 watt system, as opposed to having two separate controllers where you have a 300 watt system plus another 300 watt system and two brains. So no change in the way that satellites work, just update the face pack on the primary controller.
You just need the new Wi-Fi antenna connected to the main controller, and then all the satellites will communicate through that, or it's just sending the wattage out through that.
So yeah, so the primary controller, it communicates to the satellite controllers, and the satellite controllers communicate to the fixtures that are on that satellite controller.
Okay, cool. And then can you initiate those firmware pushes from the cloud, so when you're offsite, or does it need to be done from the controller face pack?
No. So if you're offsite, if you're a contractor, a new update comes, you open up your app, and you're in the site for your customer, the last site that you were on. It'll prompt you still. You don't have to be at the homeowner's house on their network, and you can still push it to the homeowner.
All right, a lot of good questions. Thanks for throwing those in there, everyone. Here's another one. Can you have multiple users sending commands at the same time? So could the homeowner and the contractor be connected doing stuff?
So both can be connected, both can be interacting with the controller at the same time. The problem is it's going to cause a lot of confusion to the controller, and the controller will try to do whatever it's told first. But if it's trying to still do what it's told the first time, and then somebody else tells it to do something else, then it's going to get confused, and most likely the system's not going to work the way that you want it to at that particular point, because it's confused. So say you have a homeowner presses theme A, and then your contractor's also on the site in there trying to manipulate theme A. It's hard to say what will actually turn on, because the controller could still be making those edits that the contractor was trying to make. So best practice, make sure that if you're trying to do something to the controller, make sure the homeowner's not trying to do something at the same time, just to avoid confusion in the controller itself and the lights itself not doing what you want it to do.
Okay, I got two more questions for you then. So is there future possibilities and that's for reports and alerts. Is there going to be a feature that sends an alert, maybe for a high voltage or something like that, to the contractor through the cloud?
So there is the capabilities to start sending notifications to the contractor or to the homeowner via the app. Right now, it would only be the notifications that you would get from the controller. So it would let you know that there's an overload. It would let you know the load of the transformer itself. But the ability to say, hey, group one has a short on it, that is not capable. We don't have that capability right now, and it would require a little bit of work on the fixture side. That way we could be able to, not only we can obviously communicate to the fixture, but we need the fixture to be able to communicate back to us, and that's just not possible right now. So, but yes, my plan is to, anything that you are able to read off of the face pack, that you'll be able to have some type of diagnostics capabilities on the app as well.
Okay, last question. Any plans for a desktop app version for Windows and Mac?
Not anytime soon. There's a lot of things that we want to do on that app side, using the cloud in order to get a lot of this functionality. So once we get a lot of those major features in there, then we may take a look and revisit the design of maybe a web app. So, but not at this time.
Okay, cool. Well, I peppered you with a lot of questions there. If you have more questions, our contact information was up there. Hopefully you had a chance to get that. If not, you can respond to the email that you received for the registration on this webinar. So thank you guys. Do you have any final closing comments?
That's awesome. And then, as always, please feel free to reach out to both your Hunter and FX sales managers for your particular area. We're out there, and we're all out there to assist you guys out in the field. So yeah, so the guys in Southern California, please feel free to reach out to me, and the Nebraska guys, and Ken's available. And so what we've done is we've got both tech support and product managers such as James, and the guys out in the field, which have a pretty good high capability of helping you out with those questions that do arise. So please do not feel that you're alone when setting them up. If you completely just screw it up, and then we'll come out and we'll make sure that you actually look good in the field.
Yep. We're here to help you guys. So anything you can do, not only David, myself, James, the whole Hunter team is here to help you and grow your business. So please reach out to your local sales, your Hunter and FX sales. We are here for you. Thanks for joining us. Everybody stay safe and healthy, and look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Yeah, the only thing that I want to finish off with is kind of the same point that I started with, is that the Luxor Cloud, the platform itself, it is going to have additional features. Right now, the feature is to remotely access your Luxor, and as David and Ken went through, maybe your customer doesn't want that feature at this time. But as we roll out new features, whether it be interaction with Alexa or some of these other features, remote monitoring, then at that point, they may want that cloud functionality. So just keep in mind that just because we released Luxor Cloud right now, these are not the only features that you're going to be able to get in the future. So, and other than that, I appreciate it. Thank you for all the questions, and thank you, David and Ken. Like those guys said, reach out to your sales managers. All the sales managers out there are very experienced with Luxor, and definitely have that field experience to be able to help you all out.
All right, thanks, James. And thank you all for stopping by. Really glad that you took the time out of your day to chime in and have all these great questions for us. If you have any questions in the future, training@hunterindustries.com, great resource. Also, check out the sites that I mentioned earlier in the presentation, and the recording for this will be hosted on the training site at training.hunterindustries.com. At the top of the page, there's a webinars tab. Click on that, and this will probably take a couple of days to get posted, but we'll look forward to having you come back and check that out, and all of the other webinars we've done up to this point. Thank you very much. We really appreciate your business. Thank you again for your time, and stay safe out there. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you.